Welcome to episode 4 of my 009 gauge build. I said it right this time. On this episode, I'm going to continue distressing the mountain and giving it a coat of paint before moving on to the tunnel portals. Come have a look. So it's been 3 days, as I say. Villa is finally dry. It's cracked in a few places. That doesn't matter. We can fill those little cracks with a bit of paint. So I'm just going to take a wire brush now. I'm just going to sort of scrape along the rock faces, put a few more scratches in, and we have to get old Henry out again, I imagine, to clear up the dust. And then hopefully it should be ready for painting. So I've sanded down and gone over the wire brush on the rock faces, so you've got a lot more scratch marks in here now, get a bit more realistic effect. Has exposed, because it's already a thin layer, has exposed some of the foam again, but that shouldn't be a problem. One of the problems will be though, is the foil backing has been exposed in a few places on the layout where I've sanded it back. So I know I've said this in a previous video, and I'll say it again. Remove the foil backing before building your scenery. That is one mistake I really wish I hadn't made, because I'm sure it's going to give me problem after problem as I go through this project. So I'm thinking that the paint probably won't stick to the foil, or it's going to take a bit of an effort. So I'm going to just go over any exposed foil with a bit of Mod Podge just to seal it, and hopefully the paint will then just key, the Mod Podge will be a key to the paint, and then hopefully it won't be an issue going over the foil. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Now once I've done this, I'm then going to paint the entire exposed layout as it is in a mixture of greys and browns. So I've been studying slate rock, what it looks like. It is mostly a grey, but it does have these sort of rusty brown tints in it. So we're knocking up a bit of the old black and white to make the grey, and just getting various shades of that, and then I've got various browns just to sort of dry brush on areas and just sort of give it a bit of tonal texture. I'm going to do the entire layout because I'm not quite sure where the scenery is going to go, and also it nicely seals it up so if any scenery does get knocked off later, you haven't got exposed white underneath. So I'm going to get on with this, and then I'm going to move on to the painting. It's taken me a good couple of hours. I've now painted the rock face. Give the riverbed a coat, because obviously I want to keep sealing this. Once I put, I haven't decided what product I'm going to use for the water, but obviously I don't want it to leak if I use some sort of resin. So it's had Mod Podge, bit of wall filler on the edges, and now paint. I'm still going to put Sculptamold just to sort of blend the edges in, because you can see it's just the sharp cut at the moment from the jigsaw, and then what I've put underneath the foam board, so it's not exactly a smooth transition from the land to the riverbed. However, The rest of it looks quite good. The only issue I have, if I come in close, you can see there's a few little white patches where the paint hasn't quite got in. Annoyingly on this rock face, which looked perfectly covered when I first did it, there's quite a few on this one, which is the bit I really wanted to leave exposed. But I'm not going to go over it yet. I'm going to put the scenic on it first, and then whatever rock face is exposed, I'll just go over and touch up any of those little white dots, which will probably drive me insane looking at those ones. That, however, is the mountain. So I've gone over, I've painted the road in now as well, just to sort of mark out where it's going to be. So the baseboard is now pretty much covered in paint. It's looking pretty good. The slate rock face has come out a lot better than I was expecting it to. But now I'm just, as I said, I now need to do this bank along the river here. So to do that, I'm going to be using some Sculptor mould. Never used it before, but I've seen a lot of people on YouTube use it. Looks like a good product to use. So I'm going to knock that up and just build up the bank edges around here, and then any unsightly gaps that need filling, particularly around this bridge road, cut out the scenery to fit it in. There's a little bit of a gap here, probably needs a bit of a plug. And hopefully that will dry off, I can paint that, and then I can move on to scenics. So, let's knock up some Sculptor mould. So, just going to go follow the instructions of this then. My tub of water. It says 1 part water, 2 parts Sculptor mould. So I'll do it the same way as the filler. I'll put the water in first. I'm not quite sure how much this knocks up. So I'll do a small amount, see how I get on. This really is trial and error, as I've never done it before. Again, I'm sure it's really exciting to watch me open this. Here we go. I've got a little bit of water in there. What's this stuff like? It's like shredded paper or something, isn't it? It's weird. It's yeah, it's all like shredded paper in plaster. Very odd. Very odd stuff. Okay. Well, I'll give it a go, see how this works out. It's obviously not one for pouring. So I'm just going to grab it by the hand method. Wow. Just in there like that, let's just absorb that water. I mixed it a couple of times. Okay. Looks like a very unappetising ready brack, doesn't it? So I need to mix it 3 or 4 times. I can see why. Might be quite good for doing trees, this actually. So there we are. It's a bit wet, maybe I need to add a bit more, I don't know really. As I say, this is never used this stuff before. Very, very weird stuff. It's like if you got one of those cheap pillows and it sort of broke open. I think it's the stuffing of a bear, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, there we are. That's curious stuff. Well, that's it knocked up. So I'm going to start on the river then. Start building the river bank. I think this is going to be a very messy job. So I'm going to move the camera out of the way, or my phone. And let's see how we get on. So I think I'm just going to apply this by hand. So I'm sure it'll look good when it's done. It does feel a bit strange. It does seem ideal for building up this riverbank. I'll get this little crevice here where I didn't manage to get earlier. Imagine it dries pretty quick and you can probably build it up in layers, so I'm probably going to try and do that. Okay. Yeah, this might work. I think I'm going to have to build it up into layers. So I'll just sort of do a base for that and probably go over and smooth it over afterwards. So I'm going to carry on with this. And I'll probably give you another exciting time lapse. The sculptor mould had been applied. Any excess left over was used to plug any gaps between the bridges and the hills. And I was pretty convinced that once it was dried, it could be sanded into a pretty good shape and look rather decent. There was, however, one issue. And the problem is, apart from obviously this ghastly white that's now ruining my lovely paintwork, which can easily be solved with more paint, the bigger problem is here, getting under this bridge. I've decided to make life difficult myself by installing the bridge and firmly fixing it down. And now I need to smooth the riverbank into the edge. So how am I going to do that? Well, I think I have to use this secret weapon here, a trusty McDonald's coffee stirrer. If this doesn't work, I don't know what will. As you can see, it's a messy job, but I have managed to build the riverbank underneath the bridge. And then what I had left over, I just patched up a few last bits and then just gone over the original application of the sculptor mould. Seems to dry pretty quick, apparently according to the back. It takes 30 minutes. So I'm going to let it dry, come back, see what it's like, and if I think it's suitable, I'll just give it a bit of a sand and then a bit of a paint. So, the sculptor mould took a little longer than 30 minutes to dry. Probably because it's quite thick and it's quite cold in here. It's still a bit tacky this morning. So I still need it to dry. I've got the old heater here. Trying to warm it up a bit, but I don't want to keep it on too long because, well, I think the heating of this room will probably cost more than this entire layout project. However, whilst I am waiting for that to dry, I've got 2 tunnel portals I need to do before we start the scenery. So I've had a look at tunnels on the Welsh Highland and Festiniog Railway, and they seem to have 2 types. So there's stone-built portals for some of the tunnels, and then some of them are actually just built into the rock face itself. There's no portal there. So I thought I'd do a nice mix of the 2. This is sort of more of a man-made area anyway, because you've got you have the houses up here, and the road cut into here. So this feels more natural to have a stone-built portal here rather than cut into the rock face. And then on this side, I will do just a cutting into the rock face to form the tunnel. And to do that, I've really got a bit of foam board cut up just to sort of roughly give me the shape. So I'll put that there, and then I'll get some of this Celotex stuff just to put in the front and just carve the shape of the tunnel mouth for this side. This side I'll probably do the same as what I've done with this bridge. I'll just build a plastic card portal and then put some DAS clay over it and score out where the brickwork's going to go, and that'll be that tunnel portal. Hopefully by the time I've done then, this will be dry and I can move on to sanding it down a little bit, painting it up. I probably will go over this rock face again, because I know I said I wouldn't, but the longer it goes on from drying, the more little white flecks of polyfiller I can see in the paintwork, which is really annoying because it looks really nice. And I particularly like this little area here, but there we go, that's just the way it is. So I'm going to get on with building some tunnel portals. So first off, as I say, I've cut this little bit of foam board. It was already conveniently cut at an angle, which was just the right size between the 2 bits of rock face I've got at the tunnel there. So just going to measure it up the longest side of the triangle. Onto the styrofoam. it nicely. Just start cutting it to shape. Now, stuff's very easy to cut, but I find if you make the blade really big and go deep and straight in, it tends to come out with a bit of an angle on it. I mean, maybe it's just me. It seems with anything I try and cut, always seems a bit of an angle on it. I'll try and cut wood, that always seems to end up the same, even when I use a chop saw. No idea why that happens. I've gone over the chop saw several times to try and work out what was causing the very slight angle on the wood, but I still haven't solved that problem. Anyway, I digress. So I've cut that out. Obviously it's too tall, so it's going to need trimming down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just put a bit at the front and then shape to match the rest of the rock face. So just bear with me a second. So that's about 52mm there. Cut it down. 52mm, that should match the rock face. In fact, nicely, this piece is 11cm, so I should be able to double up with just using this cut already. There we go. Just cut across there. You really should have gloves and a mask on for cutting this stuff. It's not very nice. Not very particularly nice noise either. There we are, that should do it. There's two bits like that. Got that there. So I can now, I'll put it like that. So I'll attach it that way so it's full. And then just cut the angle off there, cut the angle off there, and then put that one on the front to shape that down for the front of the rock face. So I'm going to carry on doing that. So we are, I'm going to cut those pieces up. That was just all that one piece there. I've put it in together as 3 layers, so it matches the depth of this side here. And then I'm going to just have to sort of match this in here. I might just put a bit of filler in there. There's a bit of a gap here anyway. But it won't quite wedge in because one, I've got to cut round for the track bed. But secondly, just got these little chunks here just sticking out, so I just now need to cut this bit of scenery away. Very delicately, of course. And that's the lovely stuff about this. It comes away like that. So that probably just needs just a tad more cutting off. Although I think I'll take that cut from here just to fit it in. Just like a sliver off. So there we are, that's going on there nicely. Just need to push that back to make sure that's fitting. So yeah, just need to wait for this glue to go. Just wait for the glue to go off, and then I'll cut the tunnel portal out of that one. So next is, while that's drying, I might as well make a start on this tunnel portal. You know when you do something, you're not entirely sure why you've done it. Now, obviously I left this gap here for a tunnel portal, and I've just been measuring up this card to make it. Why on earth have I left this massive gap here to be filled in with a tunnel portal? That doesn't look right. I think I'm going to have to put a bit of extra foam in here. So I've cut this bit of foam. I'll just shape it to match the rest of the rock face. Tunnel portal's cut out, a bit rough at the moment. I originally was going to do plastic art, but I've got another idea. After seeing a photo of a tunnel portal around Festiniog, so I'm going to try and do a slate effect portal. It's a bit sort of skewed to the track, but as you can see, the loco goes in there nicely. It's got that extra room here for the swing for the curve, so I'm going to leave it like that. So I'm going to make some detail now to go on this bit. So for the man-made tunnel portal, originally I wanted to use this N-gauge portal, but when I measured it up against the Locos, Scar Lowy would narrowly fit through there, and Stanley, as we'd like to call him, cab was catching on the corners. So I've opted to scratch build my own. To do this, as you saw, I've taken a bit of mount board, I've cut it to shape. So this is actually the original that you saw in the previous shot. I used the tunnel mouth here to make a rough template of what I wanted to do, but obviously made it slightly larger. Drew the arch out and then cut it out, but it wasn't symmetrical. So to solve that problem, I've cut this in half, then got another piece of card, drew one half, flipped it over, done the other, I've cut it out. Now obviously the tunnel is a bit too thin, so I've taken a bit of foam board and then I've just used this as a template, thicken it up, and I'll glue the two together. So what I'll do is a slate style tunnel mouth, which I believe the main line at Festiniog, one of the tunnels there, is built from, and it looks quite good, so I thought I'd do that. To get this effect, I'm going to do something similar to what I saw on RM Web by a modeller called Tom F. He's doing a model of part of the Scar Lowy Railway, but he's doing it in a more grown-up fashion, shall we say. He's taken the engines, but they're actually, they haven't got faces, they've got smoke box doors. They're as if the Scar Lowy Railway was a real railway in this world. And it's a superb bit of modelling. If you haven't seen it, I think it's called Sacafel. I might not be pronouncing that right, but it's S-A-C-A-Fel. It's a wonderful bit of modelling, and on it he's got the water tower that, if any of you watched Thomas or read the books, would be familiar with, is where Peter Sam's funnel got broken, and to get the water into the water tower there was an aqueduct. So to build the pillars for his aqueduct, he took some plastic card to build this, the base, and then he just took a micro strip and cut it to look like pieces of slate, and then stuck it all the way around, and it looked really good. So I'm going to do a similar style, but I'm going to do this with card. So I've cut some strips of card. So this is the thin sort of art card that you can get, just to cut a couple of strips. They're 3mm. I've done another one at 6mm just to get some variant sizes, and then I've done the same with some mount board. So there's a bit of 3mm mount board and some 6mm as well. So I'm going to cut these into various shapes and sizes. I'm going to glue them over here, and hopefully get a nice tunnel mouth. So here we are, this is the finished tunnel portal. I think that's come out quite effective. The only issue is these bricks at sort of the edge of the stones here. They lined up nicely to look about here, and then it started going out. So two of these has one of these, but I don't think you'll notice. But I just need to put a bit of filler in here just to blend the edges. Similar to what I did on the viaduct, just so it all looks like the same brick. So I'll put a bit of filler in there, let it dry, score it, sand it and score the mortar line out, and then it will probably need a bit of the paint. I said probably, it will need the paint. So whilst I've been working on the tunnel portal on the right hand side of the layout, I've also been keeping up with this one. So as I said, this has been made from some leftover cut-offs of this insulation foam. It's 3 bits that I've glued together, and then I've shaped to match the surrounding scenery. I've then cut the tunnel bore, and as you can see, the logo passes through there without catching on the sides, so that I'm quite happy with now. So before I do the polyfill around the front of the scenery to match what I've already done, I need to do the polyfill inside the tunnel. So obviously that would be a bit of a silly thing to do to glue it down. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take this out, I'm going to put the polyfiller on the inside, let that dry. And once that's dry, the usual technique of what I've done with the rest of the scenery, just sort of distress it a bit, sand it, and then paint it. Once that's dry, I'll then glue this in place, put some polyfiller over the top, and then paint to match the rest of the scenery. As I say, every time I keep looking back at this scenery, I see more and more white dots. So it probably will have to have a whole coat on everything again, which is unfortunate. But if I match what I've previously done, I think it will still look good. And here is the finished tunnel portal. So I've painted it. I'll give it a Humbrol No. 1 primer, followed by Rail Match Slate, and then I've just used the Life Colour Stone series of paints. So I've used blue stone, green stone, and I've also used their black rubber for the slate, just to give it varying tones. And then the stone arch around the portal, I've used their sandstone and brown stone, I believe. Then I've just gone over with a little bit of debris and rubble from Life Colour as well, just to sort of give that limescale streaking effect from the rainwater coming off the road down the tunnel portal. And then I finish it off with some Tamiya weathering powder, just to sort of weather the stones, tone down the glossiness of the paint, and just to give that little smoke smudge above the portal there. So that's pretty much finished. I just need to now just repaint this little patch here, and then I'll glue this in place. Obviously I will do something about what you can see beyond the tunnel, because it's not very convincing at the moment, so we'll block this view out. This side's not too bad. It's quite dark in there, and also I still need to get my finger in there to change those points. Now, the other tunnel portal, I did say I was going to put some polyfiller in there, and immediately after recording I thought, well, hang on a minute, why don't I just put some Mod Podge in there and just glue it. So I've sealed that up with PVA, so that's ready to be painted now. I'm going to paint that in the middle, then glue that in, put the polyfiller on, let that dry, and then that should be ready to go for painting as well. The installation of the tunnel portal on the left hand side of the layout was complete. The fill had been applied and allowed to dry. It would require the same technique as carried out on the other mountain scenery to help it match and blend in before receiving a coat of paint. The tunnel interior portal was also painted before being installed, otherwise it would have been a slightly impossible task to try and get it all painted correctly. Whilst doing this, I also painted the sides of the rails. On the other side of the layout, the other tunnel portal was now complete and looked quite effective, blending in nicely with the scenery. I was pleased with the result and happy with how it turned out. And finally, after 3 days, the sculptor mould finally dried on the riverbed. What I did next, well, that's another story. So I think I'll wrap episode 4 up. It's running up to the half-hour mark on this video now. But come to you in the next episode when I'll be doing this. Next time, I tidy up around the edge of the layout, build a very complicated cottage kit, and give the Daypole Church a coat of paint. Again, as a reminder, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Thank you to those who have. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.